Chosen one, there is something happening behind the scenes of your life that you still have not fully understood. While you have been quietly handling your responsibilities, protecting your peace, and moving through life without needing constant attention, someone has been falling apart, trying to understand why your presence affects them the way it does. This is not a small attraction, and it is not temporary curiosity. This person tried to treat you like a passing thought, but every attempt failed, because every time they walked away from you mentally, they somehow ended up returning right back to your energy again. And what scared them most was not how strongly they felt, it was how naturally it happened. Nothing dramatic caused this connection. There was no huge moment, no confession, no obvious sign. It happened slowly, quietly, dangerously, like water finding cracks in stone. And now this person is sitting somewhere replaying your voice, your expressions, your energy, trying to figure out how someone who never chased them somehow became impossible to ignore. And the truth is, they finally admitted it out loud to someone they trust deeply. They confessed that they cannot stop thinking about you. They confessed that no matter how hard they try to stay composed, your presence keeps breaking through every emotional wall they built over the years. And chosen one, this confession changed something permanently inside them, because once a truth is spoken out loud, it can never go back to hiding inside silence again. Not long ago, this person believed they understood themselves completely. They had routines, patterns, relationships, distractions, and enough control over their emotions to move through life without getting too attached to anyone. They knew how to keep things surface level while still appearing emotionally available. They knew how to avoid vulnerability while pretending they were open, and for a long time that system worked for them. People came and went, conversations happened, connections formed and faded, but nothing truly reached their core, until you entered their world and disrupted everything without even trying, because your energy was different from what they were used to. You did not seek validation. You did not over-explain yourself. You did not perform confidence loudly like everyone else around them. Your calmness carried something real, something earned through experience, and that authenticity started affecting them in ways they did not expect. At first they ignored it. They told themselves it was simple admiration. They convinced themselves you were just interesting. But then your presence kept following them mentally long after interactions ended. Small moments with you began lingering in their mind for hours, then days, and eventually they realized they were comparing everyone else to you without meaning to, and that realization unsettled them more than they will ever admit publicly. There was one specific moment that changed everything for them. Not a dramatic scene, not a cinematic encounter, just an ordinary quiet moment when they were alone doing something completely unrelated to you, and suddenly your face entered their mind again. Not because they tried to think about you, but because you arrived there naturally, and instead of pushing the thought away this time, they stayed with it. They sat there staring into nothing while replaying conversations with you, remembering your reactions, your expressions, the strange sense of calm they felt around you. And when they finally snapped back into reality, they realized nearly 30 minutes had passed without them noticing. That was the moment fear entered the picture, because they understood something dangerous had happened. They were no longer controlling these thoughts. The feelings had started moving on their own, and that terrified someone who spent years mastering emotional distance. They carried this realization privately for weeks, trying to contain it, trying to convince themselves it would fade naturally, but it only grew stronger, until eventually they sat down with the one friend who knows them better than anyone else, the one person capable of recognizing when they are hiding the truth, and with visible nervousness they finally admitted what was happening inside them and chose. One, the friend noticed immediately that this was different from anything before, because the person speaking looked completely unlike themselves. The usual confidence was gone. Their words stumbled over each other. They kept pausing, trying to explain feelings they could barely understand themselves, and the friends sat there quietly realizing they had never seen this person emotionally exposed like this before. Then came the question that changed the entire conversation. What exactly is it about this person that has affected you this deeply? And suddenly your name was no longer attached to simple attraction. Now they were describing you with the kind of detail that only comes from serious emotional attention. They talked about your composure, your independence, the way you walk into spaces without needing approval from anyone around you. They talked about the clarity in your communication, how you never manipulate conversations or hide behind emotional games. They admitted that your energy feels grounded in something real, while everyone else feels performative by comparison. And then they said something that made the friend completely silent. They admitted that being around you makes them want to become a better version of themselves. And chosen one, that sentence reveals everything, because attraction fades quickly, but inspiration changes people permanently. Right there in that conversation, this person realized you represent something they have secretly been searching for their entire life. Not perfection, not fantasy, but truth. They see in you a level of emotional honesty and self-respect they wish they had reached themselves already, and instead of making them feel powerful, the realization humbled them deeply, because now for the first time they are questioning whether the old version of themselves is worthy of standing beside someone like you. This is why they became nervous, not because they fear rejection in the normal sense, but because they fear showing up with the same unhealthy habits and emotional patterns that ruined previous connections in their life. They know their past versions made careless choices. They know they entertained chaos disguised as passion. They know they accepted shallow connections because they were easier than real intimacy. And now, when they look at you, they understand instantly that none of those old behaviors would survive in your presence. You would see through them immediately. Your energy forces honesty naturally, and that realization has made them deeply uncomfortable, because it means they cannot hide behind charm or emotional games anymore. For the first time, they feel like someone actually sees beyond the image they carefully built for the world, and that level of visibility scares them, while also drawing them closer to you at the exact same time. Something inside them has started changing because of you, and they cannot stop it anymore. They are beginning to recognize how exhausted they became living through surface-level relationships and emotionally confusing situations. They are starting to realize how much energy they wasted trying to control outcomes instead of building something genuine, and now every time they think about approaching you seriously, another thought immediately follows. What if they are not ready yet? What if they still carry too much unresolved pain? What if their past mistakes make them incapable of handling someone as emotionally clear as you? These questions keep them awake at night, more often than you know, because your existence has unintentionally forced them into self-reflection. They are reviewing old choices, old relationships, old behaviors, and for the first time they are being brutally honest with themselves about who they became over the years. And chosen one, this process is uncomfortable for them, because growth always is, but despite the discomfort they cannot walk away from it, because somewhere deep inside they know meeting you happened for a reason. They know your presence interrupted a cycle they were trapped inside for far too long, and now even their trusted friend can see it. Clearly, this is no longer about attraction. This is transformation. What happens next is something they never expected from themselves. Instead of asking how to impress you, they start asking how to become emotionally real enough for you. And that shift changes everything, because now they are no longer focused on performance. Now they are focused on truth. They begin questioning their own habits, their emotional avoidance, their fear of vulnerability. They start realizing how often they used humor, distance, or distractions to avoid genuine connection, and suddenly none of those old strategies feel useful anymore, because you have shown them something different exists, something calm, grounded, mature, and emotionally safe. And chosen one, safe does not mean boring. It means real. It means a connection where nobody has to manipulate or chase or constantly prove their worth to the other person, and that possibility feels almost unreal to someone who spent years surviving emotional chaos. This is why your energy feels magnetic to them, because your presence carries peace without weakness, strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance, and those qualities are rare enough to completely disarm someone who thought they had seen everything already. And here is what makes this even more intense. This person genuinely believes you might not feel anything at all, despite everything they sense emotionally. They keep convincing themselves your composure means indifference. They interpret your calmness as emotional distance because they are unfamiliar with people who do not constantly seek attention or reassurance. And this misunderstanding has become one of the biggest obstacles between both of you, because while they are privately unraveling emotionally, they are also trying desperately not to reveal too much too quickly. They fear ruining the quiet closeness that already exists between you. They fear hearing no more than they fear silence itself, because now even small moments with you still exist, brief conversations still happen, your energy is still accessible to them, and they are terrified that confessing too much too soon could destroy even that, so they continue watching carefully, holding back words, analyzing interactions, pretending to be more emotionally unaffected than they truly are, while internally your presence occupies more space in their mind every single day. And chosen one, the truth is they are already too deep into this too. Walk away casually now. There is another layer to this situation that matters more than you realize. This person sees a gap between your worlds. Maybe it is lifestyle, geography, emotional maturity, background, timing, or simply the way both of you were shaped differently by life. But whatever the difference is, they have noticed it constantly, and for a while they treated that difference like proof this connection could never work, until the trusted friend said something that completely shifted their perspective. They were asked to think about every past connection that felt familiar and easy from the beginning, and then they were asked how those relationships ended, and suddenly the pattern became obvious. Familiarity never brought them peace. It only repeated the same emotional cycles over and over again, and that is when they realized you are not part of the old pattern. You are the interruption of it. Your differences are not the problem. Your differences are exactly why this connection feels alive in a completely new way. And chosen one, once that realization landed inside them, something changed permanently. Because now, instead of fearing the connection, they are beginning to fear losing the possibility of it altogether. You may think none of this affects you directly, but it does. Because while this person is changing internally, your energy is also being challenged. Your strength has protected you for a long time. Your composure has become second nature, and your independence has helped you survive situations that would have broken other people emotionally. But sometimes the same armor that protects you also hides you. And chosen one, there are moments when people who genuinely belong near you cannot tell whether they are welcome in your world or merely tolerated inside it. This person feels your warmth beneath the surface, but they struggle to find clear evidence that it is safe to move closer, and this uncertainty has created a silent standoff between both of you, two people sensing something real while simultaneously protecting themselves from disappointment. But that balance cannot remain forever. Eventually someone must choose honesty over fear. Eventually someone must stop pretending the connection is casual when it clearly is not, and the conversation this person had with their trusted friend became the first real crack in the emotional walls they spent years building around themselves. Something is already moving toward you now, not perfectly, not dramatically, but genuinely, and the signs will appear in small ways before anything obvious happens. You will notice longer conversations, more intentional attention, questions that reach beneath surface-level topics, moments where their usual composure slips and something sincere escapes naturally before they can control it again. Because guarded people rarely reveal themselves loudly. They reveal themselves accidentally through consistency, through presence, through details. They remember about you that no casual observer would notice. And chosen one, when those moments begin happening, do not dismiss them too quickly. Because behind every small action is someone fighting internally against years of emotional conditioning just to move one step closer to you. And the most important thing you need to understand right now is this: you never had to chase this connection into existence. Your authenticity created it naturally. Your refusal to become smaller, easier, more emotionally performative sent out a signal that reached someone who desperately needed to encounter something real. And whether this story becomes everything both of you secretly hope for depends entirely on one thing now: whether fear continues controlling the silence, or whether truth finally becomes stronger than it. After that conversation ended, and the silence settled between them and their trusted friend, something inside this person shifted in a way they could not reverse anymore. Because for the first time they stopped running from what they felt, and actually allowed themselves to sit inside the truth of it fully. And the truth was simple but terrifying. You mattered to them more than they were prepared for, more than they planned for, and definitely more than they could continue pretending away. While the outside world kept moving normally around them, internally they entered a completely different season of their life, a season where every thought somehow circled back to you again, every distraction eventually failed, and every attempt to emotionally minimize the connection only made the feeling stronger. Because chosen one, real connections do not weaken when ignored, they become louder in silence. And that is exactly what started happening to this person. They would wake up thinking about something random, and somehow your energy would appear in their mind again. They would hear a sentence from someone else and immediately wonder what your opinion on it would be. They would experience moments in their day where all they wanted was to tell you about it, and those small emotional reflexes scared them because they revealed something deeper than attraction. They revealed attachment forming naturally, without permission. At first, they tried controlling it logically. They told themselves they were being unrealistic. They reminded themselves of the practical obstacles between you both: the distance, the timing, the uncertainty, the fact that neither of you had fully acknowledged what was happening openly yet. But every logical argument collapsed against one painful reality. None of those explanations changed how they felt when your name appeared on their screen. None of those reasons stopped the calm they experienced in your presence. And none of those practical concerns erased the fact that you had become emotionally important to them in a way no one else currently was. And this realization forced them into another uncomfortable truth: they were no longer afraid of connection itself. They were afraid of losing this specific connection, because losing you would not feel like losing another casual possibility. It would feel like losing something rare before it even fully began. And chosen one, once someone reaches that emotional stage, there is no going back to pretending they do not care, because even silence starts feeling heavy when feelings become that real. Meanwhile, their trusted friend kept thinking about everything they heard during that conversation, because even they could see how deeply this situation had affected them. And eventually the friend asked another question that lingered in their mind long after the conversation ended: why are you assuming this person needs perfection from you when all they have ever shown is authenticity? And chosen one, that question hit them harder than expected, because they realized they had been creating impossible standards for themselves before even allowing the connection a chance to grow naturally. They were acting like they needed to arrive completely healed, completely confident, completely transformed before deserving your attention. But deep down they already knew that was fear disguising itself as self-improvement, because the truth is nobody arrives perfect into something. Meaningful, real connections are built between evolving people, not flawless ones, and hearing that forced them to reconsider everything. Maybe you were not looking for someone finished. Maybe what mattered most was honesty, effort, emotional maturity, and the willingness to grow genuinely instead of pretending to already have all the answers. And for the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine the possibility that they might actually have a chance with you after all. These realizations they remained careful, because chosen one, this person has spent years mastering emotional restraint, and habits built through survival do not disappear overnight. There were moments they almost reached out more openly, and then stopped themselves at the last second, moments where they typed messages and erased them, moments where they wanted to reveal more emotion, but forced themselves back into composure again, not because they wanted to manipulate you, but because vulnerability still feels dangerous to them, especially with someone they genuinely value, and this is where your energy continued affecting them the most, because unlike past situations where emotional games worked easily, nothing about you rewarded performance. Your presence quietly demanded sincerity without ever asking for it directly, and that terrified them while also making them respect you even more, because for once, they felt like they were standing in front of someone who could recognize the difference between genuine emotion and carefully managed behavior instantly. And chosen one, they know you are observant, they know you notice details other people miss, and somewhere deep down they fear disappointing you more than rejection itself. There are nights when this person lies awake replaying interactions with you in their mind, trying to decode whether you feel the same pull they do. They remember your tone, your pauses, the moments where your composure softened slightly, the times your attention lingered a little longer than necessary, and they hold on to those small details because they are searching desperately for reassurance that this connection is not one-sided. But then doubt enters again, telling them maybe they imagined everything. Maybe your calmness means emotional distance instead of quiet interest. And chosen one, this internal battle has exhausted them more than anyone realizes, because when someone matters this much, uncertainty becomes emotionally consuming. They are balancing between hope and self-protection constantly, wanting to move closer while simultaneously fearing they will ruin the connection by revealing too much too soon. And the tragic part is, you may be doing something similar yourself, both of you sensing something undeniable while waiting for clearer proof from the other side, both of you protecting your hearts while unintentionally extending the silence between you. But silence cannot hold forever when emotions continue growing underneath it. Eventually truth begins leaking through behavior naturally, and that is exactly what has already started happening. This person has become more attentive toward you than before, more emotionally present, more aware of your moods and energy shifts. They notice when your tone changes slightly. They remember small details from conversations that other people would immediately forget. They pay attention to what excites you, what frustrates you, what makes you withdraw quietly into yourself, because chosen one, when someone genuinely cares, they begin studying your emotional world without even realizing they are doing it, not to control you, but to understand you better. And understanding has become deeply important to them now. They no longer just want your attention, they want your trust, your comfort, your real self, the version of you hidden beneath the strong, composed exterior everyone else sees, because somewhere along the way their feelings evolved beyond attraction into respect, and respect changes the way people approach connection completely. The trusted friend eventually spoke to them again, and this time the conversation became even more direct. They were asked whether staying silent was truly protecting them or simply delaying inevitable vulnerability. And chosen one, that question stayed heavy inside them because deep down they already knew the answer. Silence was no longer protecting anything. It was only preserving temporary safety while risking permanent regret, and regret frightens them more now than emotional exposure does, because they have started imagining what life would feel like if they never took the chance at all, if years passed and you slowly drifted into someone else's world while they remained stuck wondering what could have happened between you both. And that thought hit them with a level of pain they were not prepared for, because suddenly this connection stopped feeling optional emotionally. Now it feels meaningful enough to fight fear for, meaningful enough to risk uncertainty for, meaningful enough to finally start moving differently, instead of hiding behind emotional neutrality forever chosen one. What you need to understand is that this person is not changing because you demanded it. They are changing because your existence exposed how tired they became of pretending. Around most people they could maintain emotional distance easily.